All right, welcome back to The Way We Do It. And I'm Andre, and I'm really excited about today's topic. Should HBCUs support Black stand-up comedy? And I just rattled off a couple of people who attended HBCUs. We all know Keenon, Ivory, and Wayans. He attended Tuskegee. Wanda Sykes attended Hampton University. Rickey Smiley attended, I want to say Alabama State. Sorry, Rickey, Alabama State. He attended Alabama State, and the funny Sommore attended Morris Brown University in Atlanta. So I'll chime off a couple more people as we go along, but I just wanted to kind of give context to Black stand-up comedians attending historically Black colleges, and last time someone asked me last time I was on doing the show what this was back here. This right here. This is a old. Let me see. I don't want to mess up my back thing here, but this is a football helmet. My older brother, Harold, who was a little dusty, gave me this for a birthday present. This is an old leather football helmet. So those of you who play football. I'm gonna age myself because when I first started playing football, we played with suspension helmets, which was a hard shell, but it had straps on the inside, no padding. So for those young people out here playing football now, and you got all that cushion up under your helmet, maybe your dads or your uncles or your older brothers can tell you about the old days with suspension helmets before we went. So I did have that note before. So when I wanted to start today's show, I wanted to. Now I messed it up. My brother gave me that, and I put it up as a part of my things. Okay, but I just wanted to make sure I did not forget that from as a comment that I got. Like, what the heck is behind you? And I'll talk about some other things that are behind me. In one of my previous episodes, I did mention that I taught at a design school. I taught for 26 years at a design school out here in California. And I taught merchandising, branding, and fragrances. I'm a fragrance designer by trade too. That'll be a subject for another story, or a story subject that I'll talk about a little later. So a lot of things going on, right? But again, just like most of us, we got to do multiple things to get going to where you need to go. And I'll talk to you about some career advice in the future about just how to navigate through all of these things. You just got to kind of keep navigating. So my approach to a lot of topics that I kind of give is sort of like an approach that I would give if you're in a college environment. I'm very good at kind of analyzing things and then bring it home. And from perspectives of other experiences, how we can kind of move it forward. So this is why I have the topic that I'm giving to you today. Should HBCUs support Black stand-up comedy? Now, I'm very specific there. I didn't say comedy. I said Black stand-up comedy. It's a different kind of craft that I'm going to kind of walk you through what I think that should be. But just the history, and you can just Google this yourself. There are 107 HBCUs in America, and that's about 3%, they say, data-wise, of the total universities in America. But there's 107 of them. The oldest HBCU is Cheyney University of Pennsylvania, and Cheyney is right outside of Philadelphia. And what I didn't know, and I just, this is the beauty of the internet. I just typed in, I said, okay, what's the oldest one? And I said, what's the newest one? And I'm thinking, back in the day. But the newest HBCU is actually called American Baptist College. American Baptist College. It was founded in 2013 in Nashville, Tennessee. So this idea of, all the HBCUs being done like long time ago, no, that's not the case, right? So and that's one. So if anyone's in the Nashville area and you didn't even know that, it's called American Baptist College in 2013 in Nashville, Tennessee. So there's 107 of them. And the newest and the oldest. I have a personal experience with Cheyney University. My father after he retired from the military, was the head of security. He took on the role of head of security at Cheyney University. And my sister actually attended Cheyney University. Then she went on to attend another historically Black college in Florida, Florida Memorial. So there's been an experience in our household with Black colleges from the beginning. Never was pressured to go. I'm gonna get my mom in trouble here. I was never pressured to go to any specific college, but there there was something in our household that was like, you one thing you're not doing is you're not going to be staying in the house, right? So it's like, go job, you can go to the military, or you can pursue your education. And it was always said that if we pursued our education, that my family would support us to pursue our education. So my sister was the first. I'm one of three. My sister's the oldest. I have a older brother and then me. So my sister went to Cheyney. The rebel that my brother is, he attended New Mexico State, and I started out at the University of Houston. Now we're all from Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. It's called Yadin, Pennsylvania. But so my sister went to Cheyney. Brother goes to New Mexico. I mean, as a kid, I didn't even know what New Mexico was. And I was like, how does he find these places? But he went to New Mexico State in Las Cruces, which is, if you Google and go into the map, that's not the University of New Mexico. New Mexico State is in Las Cruces, which is close to El Paso in Texas and close to the border in New Mexico. Why did my brother go there? I don't know. My brother's sort of like an Indiana Jones type. So that was my historical journey. While I was at the University of Houston, then I decided to transfer, and I transferred to Howard University, and I graduated from Howard University. So I have a good experience of what will be considered a PWI, which is the alternative to historically Black colleges. So University of Houston at that time, I think it's about 30,000 people there. And again, I'm from Pennsylvania, right? So Pennsylvania to Houston, and then I transferred to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I graduated from Howard with a degree specializing in marketing. So that's where my background. So I understand both sides and just education, higher education in general, from those two perspectives. So I think that kind of gives me a unique perspective when I'm having debates about, especially Black people going to predominantly white schools or white institutions. How do you navigate through that? And then what is that difference when you go to a historically Black school? I did watch a topic earlier today, and the question was, can white people go to historically Black colleges? And I was like, wow, man, people are just really not paying attention to these labels, right? I teach branding, so I'm really sensitive about how you brand something, what words mean. Historically Black institution, historically, that doesn't mean it's all Black now. And for a long period, especially 60s, 70s, it was never 100% Black, but historically Black. And what that typically means is, even to this day, there's a historical culture. There's a Black culture on those campuses. So no one's been turned away because they're not being Black. Remember, this is the whole idea of why historically Black institutions were created, was because we couldn't go to those other schools. They said no. There's never been a no for anybody, any non-Black person going to a historically Black college. There's an old, I think it's an old movie. It's called The White Tiger, which, for those of you who are sports fans, is kind of cool. I think it was done in the 80s or maybe the 70s, but it's the story of the white quarterback that played at Grambling State University, historically Black college in Louisiana. So it's real. I want to say it. Correct me if I'm wrong when you hit me up with comments. That is called The White Tiger. And again, it just kind of shows, how the differences in the accepting. So I just wanted just to kind of nip that away from the conversation. And when people are going to say, well, it's the reverse. And no, it's not the reverse, right? The whole idea, it's not the reverse. When Black institutions were created, Black institutions were created because they weren't able to go other places. And then every Black institution was created is always open because we understand that sensitivity of being excluded. So I don't want to get too preachy on that, but I did want to, for young people to understand those notes and those facts. And for those who haven't had a college experience, just to kind of walk through what you're hearing out there. Because one thing I love about the internet is it is open for a lot of information. But again, we all have to be students of the information that you're listening to. Do not blindly go to with anything until you research it, right, on your own, and double check things and just make sure, ask other people, before you jump out there and put something out, especially in social media. You jump out and put something out there and it's wrong, and it's impossible to bring that information back. So you just want to take just a moment, a pause. I will say this to my students as well, especially when they were tweeting, and even my clients, they're in the entertainment industry. I always suggest them not to even have a Twitter feed because it's an emotional device, right? It's like, it's dangerous. It's like you tweet, it's how people will tweet and then they'll want to delete it later. It's like, take it down. That's because the mechanism is so easy for your thoughts to put your thoughts out there. Sometimes we can have some crazy thoughts. All thoughts aren't supposed to be put out there. We think some crazy stuff. I share this example with my students, and they think I'm crazy. And it's like, you ever been on a bridge? And I say this to my students. I say, you ever been on a bridge and you're walking across the bridge, and it's elevated, and so there's some depth. And from the rail, you look over, right? You're like, wow. I said, in your mind, you ever thought, like, what would happen if I jumped, right? So, come on now. I'm sure he's like, well, wow, what would happen if I jumped? And I was like, wow, right? That's just a thought. That's not saying that you're crazy or anything like that. It's just a thought. But in the social media world, a lot of us will then put that out there. Hey, I'm going to jump over this bridge. And then people think you're crazy. So if you're tempted like that, then, do like the grandparents used to say, just sleep on it. Take a minute. Don't make decisions when you're emotional. I'm a creative person. At a design school, there's a lot of creative people there, and you get frustrated, and there might be some yelling and stuff. But I don't take it personal because as creative people, we tend to blow up every once in a while because we get frustrated. And so it doesn't matter what age you are. So my students were 18 to 24, and so I understood. And so I have a much different temperament with that. So just a couple little tidbits about doing some research and doing some things out there. So the reason why I decided on this topic was, and remember in other episodes, I constantly mentioned to you guys that we have to we got to figure out platforms for this Black talent, right? We got to create showcases and think kind of out of the box. So I'm always kind of thinking of what's already inside of the community that we could possibly use, that we haven't been using before, and to develop the next generation. So stand-up comedians, I have a soft spot for stand-up comedians as an art form. I think comedy is a very good mechanism to bring the temperature down with humans, right? And it's a craft. There's some extremely talented people in it, but I've seen some observations of where funny people come from. And in the Black community, funny people come from everywhere. And so if you've ever been to a historically Black college, even your classmates, even watch some of the, I know it's a television show, but a different world. A Different World, the show, by its nature is humorous, right? So it's not a serious drama. It's kind of light. And my times at Howard, other than in the classroom with some intense stuff going on, oh man, there's so many characters walking around on a campus. You're if you lived in the dorms, your roommate, there's always some funny people. Black people with a spirit. I mean, I don't care where we were. We could be at chapel, You could be at a game, you could be in a lunchroom, someone, the hallways, even in the classroom when teachers act a little crazy. Just always someone in the classroom that will almost kind of get you in trouble, right? Because they're humor. So I'm looking at, in my mind, there's 107 of these institutions that have a cultural connection to, because you can't get away from Black comedy, right? Stand-up comedy. You can't get away from a comedian. There, from the Richard Pryors to the Eddie Murphys to the Monique. Stand-up culture, stand-up comedians is just a part of Black life. And so when we kind of look at what, and again, here's looking fork in the road, and you guys can debate it as well. But what I always kind of look at stand-up comedians with their humor is sort of how I look at musicians, right? You could be very talented with your bass guitar. You could be jamming, right? But it'll always make you a better bass guitar if you develop that craft, and if you have a teaching environment to develop that craft, right? Because it's just going to make you better. It's going to enhance the talent that's inside of you, right? I'm not really a believer, and I'm not sure, if we just, how much can you bring from the inside and how much is just a natural gift. But I've seen both. So what my thinking is, just like anything else, perfecting your craft. So I'm looking at HBCUs like you would look at if you were an actor. And so if you're an actor and you wanted to perfect your craft and you were going to a Black school as an actor, and Howard has a drama, film, and television program, and it has an acting program, right? So you would go to there to be an actor. Well, to me, a stand-up comedian is a variation. It's a talent just like an acting talent. Now, from friends that I've gone to school with, they're going to develop their acting talent for, dramas, plays, serious things, their comedic talent, because you're going to have talent who wants to be more of take on the comedic side of acting, whether it's a film or a television show. But what I propose is, let's add stand-up as a part of the craft that you could develop at a college. So literally inside of your program, and if anyone knows that this is already out there, please, let me know, and I'll talk about it in a future broadcast if there's actually programs like that. I haven't seen it specifically for stand-up. And to me, and now remember, all comedians don't have to go to school to be a stand-up comedian, because the thing about being a stand-up comedian is get on that stage and work it out. But for those of you who are going to college and that stand-up bug is inside of you, and that's something, because some of us, our parents are like, no, you gotta go to college, right? So if you gotta go, but you have that comic gene in you, then to me, within an institution that already has a program about the arts and has film and TV actors, that this piece of it, this very specific type, could be played out and perfected, so that you could be literally understanding the mechanics of stand-up. And there are mechanics of stand-up. The top stand-up comedians will tell you, you got to have that material ready for the stage. You say this joke before you say that joke. You got to know, like, if you're going up with multiple people, the headliner, the pecking order. There's a lot of things that you can learn. And then the biggest thing that I remember from when Cat Williams was on Shay Shay was the quote stealing of jokes, right? So that whole that thing is sitting out there about the stealing of jokes. So think about this: if you were able to go to school, and then everybody who's thinking about being a stand-up comic know how to write down your jokes and know how to record your jokes, know how to log them, like literally a log of them. Because remember, Your jokes is your intellectual property that you could do something with in the future, right? When you start developing characters. And I learned this from Rickey Smiley when he was hosting my sketch show. His sketches, one of them you guys have really taken on to. I dropped it, I think, a couple of days ago. Was he does this Little Daryl talk show, and he was interviewing Mac 10, and it's hilarious. But that Little Daryl, he created that character, and that's his intellectual property, and that's something that he's going to take with him. And he can exploit, right? So, what have you had? And Rickey Smiley, he went to Alabama State, so I don't know if he was able to take any kind of classes like that at school. But think about it. Keenon went to Tuskegee, Wanda Sykes, went to Hampton, and Rickey Smiley's down there at Alabama State, and Sommore's down at Morris Brown. And if while they're there, they could just have those added compliments, and it would expand. And for those of you who are now using YouTube to perfect your craft, but you're younger, and college is a part of something that you want to do in the future. Can you imagine that you start getting your feet wet in YouTube and doing funny things? Because typically in the YouTube environment, you're doing funny. You're not a stand-up comedian. So you're kind of doing funny things, and you're doing funny sketches, and quick little skits, quick little things, because YouTube just builds you like that. But now you want to do stand up. You want to be able to sell out arenas and clubs around the country, and you want to go on these tours because that's a part of how you want to express yourself. And you are going to go to college. Then why not while you're there? Especially if to me, it would be a great thing that it would be an elective, like that stand-up comedy class could be an elective that anyone in any majors could pick up as a general elective, right? Because like myself, I was in a marketing program when I was at Howard, and it was basically, the program itself was a very corporate marketing program. My bachelor's was in business and administration, but my concentration was in marketing. But it was basically created to send me off to corporate America, right? So, and where did I end up? I ended up creating a sketch comedy show. From being a business administration major, with concentrating in marketing, but where did I end up? Right. So, and is it beneficial? I like the track that I took, because in the entertainment world, having a business background, having a marketing background, I understand target customers, I understand branding, I understand the business of things. When I went to BET, when I was on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. with BET, I was a budget director. So that gave me a very, the financial, the hard number stuff. And then eventually I ended up in Burbank, California. I was on the creative side. So all of that mismatch of creativity allowed me to be where I am today. And so I'm a big believer in that variety, right? And especially to all talent, you should have some kind of business exposure, because most talent, you're pretty much your own business, right? You're your own business. And so if you're your own business, you got to know how to evaluate and select your managers that you're going to have, any kind of agents that you're going to have, and especially an accountant. All your hard work in your accountant, what kind of business structure you're going to have. So you're going to need to know a lot of these things. You just can't just out of trust, just trust that to other people. And then eventually you're going to be successful like the top comedians. And then you're going to want to divest into other things, right? So you're at the top of your game, you've expanded, and now you want to go into something else. I was just watching, which was cool. I saw Anthony Anderson and Cedric the Entertainer. They have their old barbecue sauce. And I forgot where, with the major place. If someone can hit me up with that, I'll share that next time. But that's the business side. They're both doing television shows, and they're both successful in that area. But now they're venturing off into branded products. Now, see, that's my territory. Branding products. That's where I live. That's where you take all these things and you brand. Now, in the entertainment world, they always talk about like rebranding yourself. That's the individual self, but you don't have to always rebrand yourself. What you'll do is brand extensions of yourself, taking your brand into other things, taking your brand into and beyond just clothing and cosmetics. And now in the case of Anthony Anderson and Cedric, they're going into barbecue sauce. Restaurants, that's a little heavier a lift to do. There's a lot more money that's involved in there. So I wouldn't necessarily go right into that. Or maybe I would do a franchise or come in with a partner, sort of back in the day when Magic Johnson was doing those kinds of things. So if someone like a Subway came to you and said, hey, let's do it together, I'd do something like that in the beginning, because there's a lot of money there. But there's individual products that you could be branded. I mean, you can do coffee mugs, candles, creating other things that are in your world. And as far as like a stand-up comedian, owning your own club. If you own your own club, then it means you have a bar, then you have a bar license. You can serve food. The food that you serve, you could be branding your own food. You could have a specialty sauce, some kind of seasoning for your stuff, and then that could be sold, even though you only have one restaurant in one place. Say you're in Nashville, right near that newest, what did I call it? What's our newest HBCU? American Baptist College, right down the street, right? So the kids on break come down there and grub up, and then you brand something. I mean, that's how you extend your business. So I say all that to say that in my mind, how I'm looking at these 107 HBCUs, and again, from their perspective, it will increase enrollment, because if young people who that is the thing that they're into, because a lot of young people who are in the YouTube space, the things that blow up tend to be on the humorous side. To me personally, there's a reason why Cat Williams, as a stand-up comedian on Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay, is one of the highest grossing viewers. It was a funny event. I mean, he said some powerful things, but it was a funny event, and it exploded in the YouTube space. So humor around the world. I mean, humor is universal. People love to laugh because, life can be just, life can get it going. And so this is a way to, and I always try to look at it from both perspectives. So how can you, as an institution, take advantage of this? Because there's going to be people who want something like this. You could do it as and now I'm talking like I'm pitching a university head. It could be done as a one-off specialty class, right? It could be a certificate kind of scenario, because institutions in different states, they have to be able to deliver their programs, and a lot of times they got to get approvals. To me, you always start with what you have. So if you already have a film and television department, if you already have a drama department, then having a stand-up comedian curriculum inside of that, to me, is the easiest way, because you've already established it. So for that teacher who's teaching drama as opposed to a situational comedy, which is sitcoms, and then this thing called a stand-up, it could be added to whatever you're already doing. So even inside of the students who are coming to you in the arts, because that's one of those performative ones, the beauty of art is once they get exposed to something, I could just imagine you got a class of 20 students, and with those 20 students, you have an opportunity to share with them a different scenario being on a stage, because typically being on a stage in an institution is typically theater, right? You go onto the stage to do theater, but think about it, you go onto the stage, which a lot of that's where stand-ups live, on a stage, to do stand-up comedy, right? It could turn into having a troupe, at the school, and then get into the things that's important to stand-ups, right? And they're professional, uh, how they do things, timing, pace. This could be an opportunity for stand-up comedians to go back to the schools. Can you imagine Keenon going back to Tuskegee and have, as a guest speaker in their drama department to talk about the craft of stand-up, or um, Rickey Smiley going back to Alabama State, or Wanda Sykes going to Hampton University, and and so on, and just have that kind of dialogue, or like what those things are. I mean, that's now a place that we could then hone in the skills and look for that next generation of Black stand-up comedians who are like those of us who have gone to Black schools. There are funny people at those schools right now, about to, I think a lot of them are just graduated. They probably, when you go up on YouTube, when you look at YouTube, and the antics that they happen on the stage and in the crowd, right? It's just like we don't see that coverage, but they're not even thinking that could be an option. And remember, when we're talking about this, when you do stand-up comedy, you're generating revenue. The promoters know this, the tour people know this, right? So you're going to venues, you're bringing in people into venues. I want you to just be a little more educated, and not to rely on making a lot of mistakes in the beginning and then learning from your mistakes. Because there's money exchange. Remember, there's ticket sales, there's promotion. I just was listening to out here in California, Tiffany Haddish is doing. She's going on a promotional tour, and she was as being promoted at one of the casinos. And I was just thinking in my mind, it's like there's a lot of negotiations that happens there, right? There's a lot of revenue things that are happening there. And when she's there, other than T-shirts, because the old days, well, not the old days, but a couple years ago, you could sell your CDs there. It's like, what is the next? What are the kind of products in 2025 that a stand-up comedian could sell, extend their brand to other things where they're going on these tours to maximize what they're doing? And is there a way to recreate in the old days, it was called the Chitlin Circuit. This is where the Black talent, especially the music talent, these were only places that Black talent could work. And so it was called the Chitlin Circuit. It was in the South. And so where you could play, this is your artists, whether they were gospel or music folks, the little Chitlin Circuit. The comics did a little Chitlin Circuit as well. And they're just cities. Which cities do you go to? You'll hear people say, yeah, I'm going to go on tour. I'm going to do LA. I'm going to do the Bay Area. I'll be up in Oakland. Then I'm going to go to Jackson, Mississippi. I'm going to Houston. I'm going to New Orleans. I'm going to Miami. I'm going to Baltimore. I'm going to DC, Philly, Chicago. So a little circuit. So on that circuit, could we develop on that circuit that there are Black comedy clubs on that circuit? And now when they come to these clubs, you already have things built in to what you're doing. So again, the earlier you find out about how to do this and how to do it the right way, and look at stand-up comedy as a business, because this is where your livelihood is. I know comedians, they got to be on the road, stay in hotels, transportation to get to these places, flying in. If you can make these things more efficient for yourself, so you could actually, if I know I'm going to all these places in advance. Now, remember, typically you would need someone else to do this, because remember, you're kind of working on your craft, but you have to know how to select people that are going to be doing your business for you, right? Because then if you don't, they could take advantage of you. So, and if there's tools that you could do, on a website or an app that can efficiently show you what your travel is. I got to go to 17 cities, and I can put in here, these are all the dates I got to be there. Here's when I got to be in town, and I can knock that out and find out what that number is. And then make sure that that number for my costs are covered in the ticket sales that are at those places, or the promoters who are doing it with that revenue in mind. And so I'm not walking away a poor person, right? So a lot of these things can be done inside that curriculum. Remember, when you're at a university, you have access to the accounting department, you have access to the finance department, and things can be put together like a survival guide, a stand-up comedian guide as a profession, because it is a profession. So let's treat it like one that you can go to school for, or you can not go to school for, right? So when I started television, I didn't. My major wasn't film and TV, right? When I went to school, remember I was a bachelor's of business administration, both at the University of Houston, and then when I transferred. So I knew I was going to be on the business. I needed to understand business because to me, America, what makes America um, great is entrepreneurship and the opportunity to be entrepreneurs. That's what makes America great. And if we would just focus on that, there's no going back. It's entrepreneurship. And how do we know this? Coming out of our situation here in America, the number of patents that Black people had after slavery, the number of patents, that means that these people were thinking and creating things that are patentable, meaning that you could create a business from. After slavery, they were coming out with these things. What sidelined that was their ability not to be able to be an entrepreneur, right? That's what sidelined it. The system shut that down. So my thing is, we all need to think a little bit more entrepreneurial, even when working with other people. In my younger days, when I was working at Xerox, there was a term, intrapreneurship. Intra, like entrepreneur, intrapreneur, means that you have the mindset of an entrepreneur, but you happen to be inside of an organization. And I used that approach to thinking until a point where I became an entrepreneur. Because when you're an entrepreneur, then you can hire people, right? Um, and move it from there. So that's my whole emphasis: is how can we develop our crafts in a way that we could take advantage of the full talent base that's behind us. In this case, a historical Black institution, all of the different kinds of opportunities and tools that are on campus, so that the stand-up comedian, because when a successful stand-up comedian is making money for other people, and it's going to be making a lot of money for other people. And so and they are, to me, by definition, entrepreneurs. They're all entrepreneurs. They're controlling their own destiny. The ones that I know, the ones that you see on the way we do it on my channel, they're all, to this day, they're all getting on the road. They're all booking their hotels, going out, and they're dealing with promoters, getting their money, taking care of their families. So they're all business entities. Their business is the business of funny, and they have a very specific way of pulling off their funny. And so what we need to do to support them. So when you support them, you want those dollars to go to them, so that they can then reinvest those dollars back into the community. So my thing is, like, that's long term. We have to start changing this behavior. I'm a big believer in the next generation, developing the tools. We have young people who just graduated from high school. Remember, we're talking about college graduation, but at the same time, young people are just graduating from high school, and a lot of them are choosing to go to institutions, 2-year or 4-year. There's part of that 107 historically Black colleges. Some of those are junior colleges as well, too. So, do your research, pull it up. And what I like about a junior college specifically, and even if it's not an historically Black college in the beginning, what I like about junior colleges are they're typically everywhere in every state, and they're very affordable. And what I like about them, and this is what I mentioned in supporting my nephew going to a junior college, was it gets you on a campus, even if it's one class. It gets you on a campus so that you can kind of understand what being on a campus is all about, and how you just feel this sense of learning, right? It's a higher level of learning, and you're going to typically be exposed to people you've never been exposed to before. These are total strangers. These aren't your high school or your high school friends. You might even run into people at a junior college that were rivals at your high schools. Now, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and rivalry is a big deal, right? And so, I hate to use the word hate, but with them rivals, man, you just don't want to have anything to do with them, right? Because they're a rival school. And I guess, when you're in high school and, especially if you play sports like I play football, you just it's not happening, right? And there's no social environment where you can come to terms with a rival, where it's like there's no beef. But when you're at school and then you run into someone who was at a rival school than yours, and you find out they're really cool people, you're like, man. And my first impression was like, man, maybe this could have changed when we were in high school. Nah, I that whole idea of a rival, that's what they are. It's I don't know how you can get past rivals. The only thing I can see that got past a rival if you were dating someone from another school, right? That's the only, because I don't know. I've just never seen it. So again, I wanted to share with you. This is my teacher coming out of me is, even if you're working, you're working a part-time job, you work in retail, whatever, man, grab a class. Get into that environment. And if you're at a junior college and they have some, and if you're a funny person, see if they have anything on that side, and see if there's anything that they have in the arts. Just to get around other funny people that's on your campus. Maybe you're only taking one class, so it's not gonna kill you, right? And so take one class, you might as well take one that you enjoy, and then to me, you'll get an itch, and then you'll do more. But it breaks the cycle, it breaks the pattern of not thinking that you qualify, or this is not for you, and then you realize I can do this. It's all a mindset, right? I was listening to a show yesterday in California, where in Southern California, they're having a issue with retirements in the water districts. Now, this is crazy, but I just got to share it to you. This is the way we do it. So I'm just letting you know stuff that's happening. Meaning that the people who actually give us our drinking water, like I think 1 out of 5 of them are retiring, right? So they're going to have a shortage of these people who understand the water process, filtering, testing, and all this kind of stuff. And so they got some. So the water district, that particular water district, invited some elementary school students in. They just show them the engineering the chemistry and remember, and you're drinking water, so it was kind of a fun activity. And I just was thinking, I was like, once you expose people to something, a craft, especially the younger you can expose to, now they're planting a seed for a future. And we as Black people got to do the same thing, right? We've got to start. I've seen people now, we're like, oh, we're tired of Black people, we're fed up of what they're doing, and we just up to hear that. Well, what you gonna do to fix it? And to me, is if people are feeling like they're spinning around and there's no hope, and they're gonna go into stuff. So let's get them. Let's get those 17-year-olds who, and again, people are saying we're scaring people away from college because it's expensive. Yes, college is expensive, right? But you can make decisions about those expenses as well. You don't have to just automatically go to the college that's going to put you in $50,000 worth of debt, right? What did I mention? All right, let's just start early. Let's start at a junior college. Let's start at one class at a junior college, right? The closest one, when I grew up in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, I grew up, it was called Delaware County. There was Delaware County Community College right there. People could have been like, oh, I'm gonna go to Cheney, which is a 4-year institution. I get the University of Penn or Penn State, more money on the table, right? And a lot of us don't have it, but to just X off not going to school, some of us, for scholarship purposes through sports, we're able to, but that's a small minority of people. But let's elevate some and take it to the next level. The Community College of Philadelphia, I'll tell you this little story. When I was at Howard, had to take a calculus class, and I was interning in the summer in Philadelphia, going to school in Howard, which is in DC. And I got approval to take a calculus class because I found out there was a calculus class I could take in the summer in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Community College while I was there. Because I wanted to stay. When you're a transfer student, the school that you go to, typically, I'm not saying this for everybody, but typically the school that you go to normally doesn't transfer all your credits. And what does that mean? That means, like, say if I got 20 credits of work that I did at the school that I was at, like, for example, so the University of Houston, this is not my exact thing, but I was at the University of Houston, say I had 20 credits. Well, Howard evaluates if those are transferable or not. Meaning if they have in my mind, would that class that you took there be a type of class that I would have taken at Howard, which I would have gotten credit for? And a lot of it has to do with titles, right? The title of your class. So if at the University of Houston, if I had a crazy title on a class, and at Howard, it was a very conservative, like straightforward kind of class, they probably won't transfer it. So what does that mean? That means I have to take that class at the University of Houston over again at Howard. So say I came from University of Houston, I had 20 credits, right? And say Howard only accepted 15 of those. So I had to now take 5 credits at Howard to get back on pace. And everything is about graduating on time. So for me personally, it took my degree program was a 5-year program because I basically lost a year in transferring. Now people are like, well, you shouldn't have transferred, you just stayed. No, I wanted to transfer. So that was the price that I paid, and no regrets on that. So would I have loved to have a couple extra credits? Yes, but I knew that my new school wasn't just doing it because they didn't like me. So I found all those things out. Now, if I could do it again, I hate saying this, but if I could do it again, but for those of you who are out there thinking about transferring now, right? So you're in college, you're thinking about transferring, you're starting a semester. Here's my suggestion to you. Wherever the school is that you're thinking about going to, and you can call them, you can call their admissions people, and you can ask them and ask them about the school that you're at and what kind of classes could you take. Now you got to say it in a way that's saying to the new school that you're probably going to come to them, right? Because you're getting this done for free. So don't tell anybody I tell you this, right? So you ask the new school, you give them what school that you're coming from, right? Because you got to give them transcripts anyway. And while you're there, what classes could you take so that you can maximize your transfer? Now, most transfers are probably like me. I think I'm good. Once you're in the mindset, remember, it's like, don't make decisions when you're emotional, right? So most transfer students, I think, are like me. It's like, once you're in a transfer mindset, you're like, I'm out of here, right? So you just get, I just gotta go. If you can, and if you're not as emotional as me, and you can say, okay, yes, I am transferring, right? So I'm at the University of Houston. I'm going to go to Howard. Hey, Howard, I want to transfer to Howard. So I'm taking classes here. I'm about to start my semester, because normally you're in semester when you start to think about these things, right? It's never normally in the summer. It's usually between semesters. You got to go. So while you're there, take the class that that can transfer, so that when it's time for you to transfer, those 5 little credits because you got to take classes anyway. So it's not like you can't fail them because they're not taking failed classes. So you can't take a failed class and move it over, right? You got to get, I want to say it's a C, or I think you have to have a C in a class to transfer. Let me know if that's wrong, but I think it's a C, right? You got to pass the class. So you can only pass, you can only take your past classes. So while you're there, you might as well go ahead and knock out those couple of classes that you're going to take anyway, and then transfer them. So that's my little tidbit for those of you who are in that. And, and that's why I don't judge, my whole thing about changing careers is the same as like changing schools, right? You just got to know when it's right, and that's what you want to do. I have no regrets leaving Pennsylvania to go to school in Texas. I learned so much more. I've got friends that are from the University of Houston that are still my friends to this day. See that little, see that? I have friends to this day that I still have forever. So I had no regrets of going, and I have no regrets for transferring because that's what I needed to do. And I have no idea at the time that I was going to be in California. And I had no idea at that time that I would eventually be a creative person creating content, right? So creating a sketch comedy show, and I'm in the process of creating a high school drama, and I've already written my horror movie, right? So going back to then, if I would have said this is what I would have been doing, I'd have been looking at you like you're crazy. I probably back in those days, I would have probably said I was a marketing exec. The coolest marketing exec would probably be, a Nike exec or, some cool product, because remember, my major was marketing. So I'm in some corporate Fortune 500 company because that's how I was conditioned to work for corporate America, not realizing that the actual core of this American system, you'll learn this in your econ class, and that's why people legally and illegally come to America, right? Because this is the entrepreneurial bastion of the world, right? If you come up with folks, watch me, and you get off of this and you get inspired and you come up with something in America, you could blow up overnight. That doesn't happen in other places around the world. Other places around the world, your family got money or you got to have some connections. Here, you can come up with an idea, and if you can get it out to the market, boom, it takes off, right? There was a day when there weren't cell phones, right? There's so many different things. Post-it notes, those little stickies, the little pieces of paper. Someone created that. Everything is created. Someone creates all this stuff. And in America, this is the place for that to excel. Now, I'm not excusing any other things that are happening in America to keep Americans down. But what I am saying is for those things that we can do and continue to, keep our foot on the gas. I don't let people off from their wrongdoings. But at the same time, just like we got two hands, at the same time, we need, to me, let's infuse an entrepreneurial spirit into our younger people. And we got to do that by example. We got to share. And this is part of why I'm coming to you guys now is I'm just committed to now all that experience I learned in entertainment, especially my 12 years at BET. When I'm hearing stuff out there in the marketplace that's wrong, factually wrong, or it's just not even talked about at all, I think it's important for us to share that information so that you guys can have these tools. And so for me, and I believe in staying in my lane, I developed my craft on the comedy side of stuff. So inside of producing comedy, from the perspective of producing it for television exhibition, that's the lane that I'm in. Producing comedy for television exhibition. I was about to forget that word, right? Is what I lean into because no one can take that away from me, right? No one can take away that I created those 2 seasons of sketch comedy and I own my trademark. Ooh, let me say that again. And I own my trademark. So when you go to see the way we do it, when you go to that channel, the way we do it, Andre Barnwell, owns that trademark. And I'll share with you in some of later episodes why that's important, that intellectual property, and why a lot of people don't have it. They don't own they create these shows, they don't own their shows. I own my own trademark. Huge. But again, when I'm practicing what I preach to you guys, understanding how to do that. And I understood how to figure that trademark out on my own using the research tools, the internet. And again, these skills of researching, I learned that when I was in college. So when people say, 2 things that were big to me in going to college is everything was about research, right? And the second thing is the social skills that you develop around people that you didn't know before. And that's what I think is kind of rough on young people now. They don't really, once you're in your own little tribe, you're cool in your own tribe. But when you step out from your own tribe, ooh, it could get uncomfortable, right? And I think as being an entrepreneur, you have to be very comfortable being outside of your tribe, not losing yourself when you're outside tribe, but you gotta deal with other people. I have no problem taking my passport and going to and being in Shanghai tomorrow, or going to Rio, or going to Germany, or going to Cape Town, South Africa, or Joburg, right? And having a conversation. It'll be a little bit more challenging if they didn't speak English. But one cool thing about the language of English, it tends to be a universal language that in outside countries, those countries teach their students English as a universal language to have conversation and negotiate business. So why don't we take advantage of those kinds of things? So I say all that to give you that perspective of let's look at that. Let's see if we can challenge our institutions to and please send me if they have something like that. If one of these historical Black schools has a drama department, and if you can find out if you can be taught stand-up comedy as a part of that, developing that actor as your craft, because I think that's a way for us to get another generation. And then inside of that, we can start developing some of the other things that stand-up comedians do for the Black community, which means generating revenue, getting people in business, because remember, they're touring, they're doing clubs, and we're looking for the next and the brightest, so that these filmmakers like the Ryan Coogles of the world, and even myself, find a homegrown talent pool that we can use in movies, because now year after year we're starting to generate, and everybody's not going to be able to flush this out, but that's just like anything else, right? So but the craft, just like where I ended up for my major, but I think while you're in school, you should have fun when you're in school. I mean, to me, at the end of the day, college should be a fun experience, right? You work hard, but it's fun. Those of you who went to school in the 80s, you know what time it was, man. We had a good time. It was a good time for experiences, traveling, meeting people that you would have never met ever before in your life. And again, I know that financially it can be challenging. So that's why I'm big on trying to give solutions, find out what the problems are, and then kind of give you some real life solutions. Because I hate it when I listen to people and they always talk about the theory of stuff, but they never kind of give you like what you could do tomorrow. So what I'm going to end this episode with, remember, so we walk through stand-up comics. For those of you who are in the YouTube world, let's see if we can use the 107 institutions as a platform for you to develop your talent. You might end up doing stand-up comedy, and you might actually like drama or something else, and then you're in the next Wakanda forever, right? You become the next Denzel, right? Just off the branch of, you thought it was going to be comedy and turned into something else. So I think those things are extremely important. And so that tidbit again, just to repeat it to you, is I know school can be financially prohibitive for a lot of you. So let's start with something real simple. Identify a community college in your area, in your commuting area, and see how much it costs to take one class. And then while you are working, I know a lot of places who have young people working for them. When you say to your bosses, "Hey, I have a class that I'd like to take on a Wednesday," they can, change your schedule and such, because it's education. So you put a lot of pressure on your people that you work for if you're doing that, and you're just doing one class, but it exposes you to a different kind of a newer environment. Expose you to a newer environment, and for me. Now that I kind of planted the seeds, and there's some other people, I just want to throw couple of other people that are connected to HBCUs as well. Some of these old schoolers out here. Joe Torre, hilarious Joe Torre. He went to Lincoln University of Missouri. There are two Lincolns. There's one Lincoln University. It's an HBCU in Pennsylvania, and then there's Lincoln University of Missouri. I didn't know that for a hot minute. Lonnie Love, you see her in the daytime talk world. She went to Prairie View. Kim Whitley, who's got this hilarious podcast. She went to Fisk. I have a personal story about Kim Whitley because I went to school. See, this is how all this works. I went to school with Kim Whitley's two brothers who went to Howard, and so I didn't know Kim directly, but I went to school with her brothers. See, this is how small some of these worlds are. And then you have other people. I don't know if Anthony, and I don't mean to put you on blast or anything, Anthony, but I think you're a funny dude. I don't know if you do stand up or not, but we're claiming you because you went to Howard. So Anthony Anderson, I'm watching some of those Blackish reruns, man. It's just you killing me with that. And then again, you doing your thing with the barbecue sauce. So you and Sid, much ups for doing that. So as usual, I only like to do this for about an hour, but I just wanted to kind of plant some thoughts in your minds as to how we can move forward and in developing our homegrown talent and taking this craft that we have and attach to institutions that are already existing in our world for the next generation. And to me, give our stand-up comedians now a place where they could come back in more of an academic environment and share with this next generation the craft of stand-up comedy. I don't think you can make anyone funny because that's just in them. But there's the craft, because when I sit around these successful stand-up comedians, there's a craft to their business, and it would be great to have them connect back to what I call this YouTube generation of funny people who some of them want to aspire to that craft and have this kind of connection where they can then get out there in those clubs and start writing down their jokes and start knowing what 5 minutes is and what 10 minutes is, and watch shows, old shows, watch these old comedian comics, find out what your style is. Some of these comedians like D.L. Hughley, they're on the radio, call into the radio stations, and talk to them about the craft of stand-up comedy. I'm sure, they will respond favorably to you because we all respond favorable to what we have a passion for. And now start to me, connect these seasoned stand-up comedians with funny young people and make that connection so that we're passing that baton of the proper craft, so that way we're not criticizing without giving them the tools. One of the things I just gets me is I'll never criticize you if I know you don't have the tool. Now, once I give you the tool and then you're still doing it crazy, see, then I have an excuse. And so like for my nephew, I never criticize my nephew if something I didn't explain to him. If I didn't tell him to park the car, get out the car, open her door, take her up the steps, make sure she gets in the house, and then you get back in your car and you go. And when you come to her house, you don't beep, you park the car, go up those steps, knock on the door, and be prepared to speak to a parent in the right way. If I don't say that to my nephew, then how do I expect him to have that kind of conduct, right? We're talking about proper behavior, especially now. So I don't want to get into it too much, but the trial that you're all watching is proper. When I look at all of that stuff, it's proper behavior, right? And what's expected from people in general, and what's expected from our people. And we can't keep blurring that line, right? We have to give our young people expectations and support them. And in my case of this comedy thing, let's show them the right way. Now, if they don't want to do the work, then that's on them, right? My nephew pay to go to school. If you fail a class, that's on you. But you can't say your uncle didn't write the check. Make sure you got the class and got the books so you can go do it, right? So that's what we have to do. So I'm glad I came to you guys. I just wanted to plant the seed with you, and now when you start to look at some of this talent out there, and I'm specifically doing HBCUs because we have a little bit more of control over those in the Black community, and I'm always looking for platforms where we can develop our talent to go out there in the profession. In the bigger scheme of television, to me, the void of not having a Comic View out there, not having a Def Jam out there as a platform for Black comedians is still hurting us to this day. And that hasn't been settled. And then beyond that, and things that I do, which is in a sketch form of that version, that's not sitting out there as well. And so where do we go? And so how do we get back on track with entrepreneurship, Black media from that perspective of entertainment, beyond the dramas, the news, the sitcoms, the films, that place, that comedy place, that's a big deal with us, and it has big ramifications. And so I'm all about, and again, when you hit me up and you just like that little helmet, where's my little helmet? My little helmet back there. So you hit me up, I'll reach out and anything quirky that you see behind me, you're like, Andre, what the heck is that? I'll share. It's good. So again, from California to you guys, I will see you next time. Stay up, and maybe what's today? Today is Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday, some of you guys might just pick up the phone or Google your local community college and see what's there. Or some of you are prepared. You're about to hang out for the summer with your family before going to college. Maybe you might go and see from the college that you've already selected if they have some kind of drama department that could cater to humor, if that's part of the experience that you want. So in all those cases, I will see you next time. Take care.